guys, welcome. I am here with Ryan. We got chatting and decided we needed to collaborate. We are both really excited. Both have been working in the field for a while, and just kind of awesome to have somebody um, that is like-minded in our approach. The more that I've seen stuff come up on his page, and I think we've been following each other for well
Like
over 5 years.
a while. Yeah, it's crazy to think about it. Yeah, we've been following each other and going back and forth for a while now. And you're right, we're so like-minded in our beliefs, which is why this is going to be such a natural thing for us to talk about. And it's exciting.
Yeah, it'll be good. So Ryan, just to start out, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your background and your approach to fitness?
Yeah, sure. So, well, my background, I was always, growing up, kind of one of the bigger kids, and always had a little bit of a weight issue, growing up. And then I ended up joining, the military out of high school, and was in pretty decent shape then. The problem with that is once I got out, it's you kind of step back to your old bad habits. I didn't develop any good habits or anything like that. So, food was always a thing for me. I love food. I'm a huge foodie, and unfortunately developed a really bad relationship with food, and that kind of got me to one of my lowest points when I was about 350 pounds. Lots of medical issues, type 2 diabetic, high blood pressure, and all the other things that go along with it. So it was at that turning point when I decided, you got to get my life together. Um, I had a family, two kids, a wife. Like I got to be around. My both sides of my family have just an extensive, negative medical history, and I was just following in that footstep. So, um, you know, kind of the turning point for me. Got my stuff together, got into powerlifting. That's when things really started taking off for me. Before that, I guess I should probably touch on, a starting point where a lot of other people start on is, I followed all the fad diets. And I tried this, I tried that, yo-yo diet, you lose 50 pounds, gain 70 pounds. Like I've been through it all. And it wasn't until powerlifting that really gave me my foundation of where I'm at now. That's when I started really understanding the importance of nutrition and started developing, the habits that go along with it that we need to set for ourselves to live a good, healthy lifestyle. So, I did powerlifting for about 2 or 3 years. I was okay, not the strongest, but also not the weakest. And then within this last year, I started getting into bodybuilding. So I transitioned from powerlifting to bodybuilding. So I'm hoping to step on stage within next year, 2025. And in the mix of all this, I've educated myself a lot on nutrition, became certified nutrition. It's a huge passion of mine to be able to help people. And that's kind of why we're here today to talk about it and talk about our experiences and kind of share our knowledge with people. So, what about you, Sheena? Like, what about your background? I know yours is pretty extensive too. So, I'd love to hear about it.
So growing up, I was an athlete. I played soccer. I was a gymnast. I danced, and this is back when you didn't have to like specialize when you were 12. But um, I've always been athletic. I've always had something that I was doing. I was very very lean growing up. I was naturally just very small, and I attribute a lot of that to how active I was, but also genetically, I just wasn't built very big. And um, when I got into college, I started to gain a little bit of weight and really started trying to pay attention to the fact that I wasn't going to dance class 3 days a week and soccer class or soccer practice 5 days a week. Like my activity level had really plummeted, and um, I actually started. If we were talking on the phone, and I had said my start was CrossFit, but actually I started out running. I had a friend who is an avid runner, and she's an amazing runner, and I she got me into running. I've ran a couple of relays, the Ragnar relays, and a few half marathons, marathon because of her, but I liked it because of the social aspect. And I did get to a point where like you hear of the runner's high and some clarity that came from like some of those runs, but then I started into CrossFit, and it was the first time my dad lifted all growing up, but I never really got into it. And um once I started CrossFit, it was so empowering to be able to lift heavy weights, and it was super frustrating at first because I did not have a lot of strength. But as I was doing that, I started to recognize how much I really loved it. And then we moved, and I didn't have access to the same CrossFit gym, and it just wasn't the same kind of feel. And so I fell back into the running, and then we moved again, and I found that there was a group of ladies getting together and exercising, and I really wanted to do something. So I started doing it, and the gal that was teaching the class ended up getting hurt.
Oh no.
And I was like, you know what? Like it was a free class. It was just a community that got together. I'm like, I could do this. I'll take this on. I'll put some stuff together. And so I started teaching, and just for free, just so we all had somewhere to go that we could move and do whatever. And I loved it. And I was like, hey, I need to do this. I need to go. So from that point, I went and did the ACE certification and started this small garage gym where I have just continued and loved it. And then in 2020, the whole world fell apart. And I was like, you know what? I really want to add to, I think knowledge is very, very powerful. And I continue to learn. So I've done the bioforce conditioning class from Joel Jameson, and I've done I actually went and got the NASM, or I think it's NASM, NA, yes,
NASM. Yep.
NASM uh, books, and went through all of their stuff. And then in 2020, I was like, you know what, I really need to push into some of the nutrition side of this. So then I certified with precision nutrition,
Okay.
and yeah, I've just I love to learn. So
Yeah.
that is one area where I have just continued to push. Um and I think you are super brave to be on stage and do the bodybuilding thing. I That has never been anything that I have wanted to push into because it's scary. So I think that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it is, and that's kind of why I'm doing it. I want to going from where I came from, right, over 350 pounds to where I'm at now. Like I want to push myself beyond what I could ever think is imaginable. Like if I were to tell my 350-pound self, like, hey, dude, guess what? One day you're gonna step on a bodybuilding stage, like I'd be like, yeah, right, you're freaking full of it. So and it's still kind of in my mind like that. Just thinking about it, I'm like, man, how crazy is it by this time next year I could be stepping on a stage. Um, so and it's again, it's about pushing myself, out of my comfort zone. Actually, this year's my goal is to keep pushing myself out of my comfort zone, grow myself and my business and so forth. So it's scary for sure. I'm very nervous about it, but I have a really good coach. I trust him with everything that's going on, with my diet plan and my workout plan and everything. So um, I'm excited about it, and we'll see what happens. But I didn't know you got your certification through Precision Nutrition. Maybe I did know that and I forgot, but yeah, that's where I got mine too. So it was a really good
That's
course.
awesome. Yeah, it is. It's awesome. And um I actually, like, it was 2020, there was nothing going on. I'm like, okay, where can I improve? Where can I do better? And it was the nutrition piece, because
Mhm.
it's a big deal. It matters.
It does,
As much
yeah.
as I would really love to figure out how to outwork any diet, it's just not. It's
You can't. It's
Nope.
diet is, I'm confident to say it's a good 80% of the battle. Like you can have the best workout plan, you can have the best coaches, you can have the best of everything. But if your diet is not in check, you're just not going to go anywhere. It's all about, your food consumption and I mean there's more to it. There's like, stress and all these other things. But that kind of play into it. But, diet, it's going to be key.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I agree. So, tell me some of the turning points that changed maybe your approach to fitness and nutrition.
Mhm. So kind of touch base on it a little bit with, where I started, like one of my lowest points, with, my weight and health issues and stuff. So that that was um that was my turning point. And then from there, um just learning and knowledge and taking, all the things that I've gathered and putting into place. So like I said, I started out, following all the fad diets and, keto this and paleo this, and you gotta, intermittent fast and just all these things that are like pushed on us. I fell for every single one of them. And once I realized these things are not sustainable, right? These things are just basically marketing gimmicks. That's all they are. And when it comes down to it, it's about, what you put in your mouth, aka calories, and then the energy you exert, aka calories in versus calories out. That's what really matters. Um, Once I realized that, and it was like a light bulb that clicked in my head. It's like, why couldn't someone tell me this sooner? It's really that simple. Calories in versus calories out. I just got to watch what I eat and make sure I'm eating a lot less than, than what I'm, supposed to, being in a caloric deficit. Is that really it? And it is. I mean, it's literally that simple. And I think people overcomplicate the process. Of course, there's other things that go along with it. Like I said, like, sleep and, stress level management, hormones and stuff like that. But at its core, it's calories in versus calories out. And the majority of the time, if that's what you focus on, you're going to have success. So that was kind of a turning point for me. Once I realized that, and I started learning, you know, reading studies and, forums and looking at other people's, progression that have the same mindset, more scientific approach, to weight loss. And it just started, full steam ahead, and goals were getting hit at that point. And that's when I, started taking nutrition more seriously, got certified. And again, like you said, you like to learn, I like to learn too. I mean, it's all about growth. It just, everything just seemed to fall in place at that point. And it just, like I said, just everything just, clicks at that point. So what about you? I mean, you've been through, obviously, a pretty extensive journey yourself. So, like, was there anything particular that like once it happened, once everything clicked, like it was like, oh, I got this, or?
I have had a few moments where things kind of fell together. When I first started, I was not in a great mental headspace when I first started working on myself, by myself. So
Mhm.
after I had done CrossFit, I had ran my first marathon, and about 6 months later, I was in a very, very dark spot. And I might have been in that dark spot before, but I didn't recognize it because I remember people saying things to me like, "Yeah, you were not good. Like you were."
Yeah.
But it took that moment, and I vividly remember sitting on the floor of my closet. We were supposed to be going somewhere, and I could not find anything that fit, and I, I'm bawling, and my husband's like, "What? Put some clothes on, let's go." And I'm like, I just remember hating myself so much. I had such hatred for my body and how I had let myself get to where I was at that point, and I knew I needed to change, and so I thought I could just hate myself then. And I would punish myself. I would go get on the treadmill. I would go do, weight training and hit and just do crazy, crazy workouts and really just punish myself. And I had a coach at the time. She finally was like, "Sheena, like you you have got to stop beating yourself up. Like you can't go build yourself up in this place of power, and like that is where you're trying to work on you and trying to get better, and you're mentally just beating the crap out of yourself. You've got to lean into like loving who you are." And I'm like, okay. And that was like a huge moment for me when I recognized I can't hate myself. Like I have to accept where I'm at. I have to love who I am, and that doesn't mean I can't progress and I can't work on getting better, but I can't hate myself skinny
Mhm.
or fit or thin. And so it was in that moment where I kind of started to um really change my mindset, and I decided I was going to go for 30 days and I was going to exercise every day. I was building that habit. And my husband's like, don't you think maybe you should like take a rest day? And I'm like, nope, I'm exercising every day for 20 minutes for 30 days. And I made it to like 46 days because by the time I hit 30 days, I felt so good. And he finally was like, you take a rest day or we're going to have a problem. And I was like, fine, I will take a rest day. But that solidified that habit for me because I felt so good. And the scale actually didn't move, but I had probably put on enough muscle. And I don't have measurements from that point. I didn't measure myself. I have some progress pictures, but I had no measurements. I had no scale weight, like nothing. I just started, and I it built my confidence. And um I think that's why I felt confident enough to go take on this class too. But the building that habit was like the point of like,
Mhm.
okay, I since then I have exercised 5 to 6 days a week. And some days the exercise is a walk. Some days the exercise is yoga because I need to listen to my body, and I've learned
Yeah.
I've learned that that's huge for me, is leaning into listening to where I'm at and learning the difference between I'm trying to get out of this because I don't want to do it and my body is done. And I've had a few points where I feel like I maybe hit that level of over exercising to where my body was like, and like we're gonna retaliate now. So it's definitely been learning how to find that balance between
Yeah.
all of it.
Of course, and you mentioned something that I'm huge on, especially right now, and that's mindset. Like your mindset is it will quite literally dictate your path on your fitness journey because what you think about yourself or what you think about the process is going to manifest itself into the reality of your goals. So, two things like my clients, I need to make sure that they have ready before they even think about coaching is their mindset and their heart, right? Those are two very important things. You got to have that passion. Your heart's going to be on fire to hit your goals because, like, your husband was like, hey, you need to take a rest day, right? It's a whole different lifestyle when you start prioritizing your health and fitness. Like other things kind of take a back burner, and that's okay. You gotta find that balance, but you gotta have that burning desire and that eagerness to make it a priority, and your mindset's got to be right there with it. Like you got to be mentally tough, right? You got to be able to mentally take on all these obstacles that are going to come your way because, as you know, it's not easy. Like it is such a hard process. There's more downs than there is ups, right? So at least there was for me. Like I probably have way more downs and more failures than any victories or things that those proud moments that I had. But you just got to be mentally tough because it's exhausting. It's when the scale isn't telling you the right story, or clothes are fitting not the way you want it to, or just the self doubt in your own head. It's a really hard, tough mental battle, and you got to be ready for it.
I had a coach that continued to tell me, trust the process. I'm like, scale's not moving, the scale's not moving. And he's like, trust the process, trust the
Yes.
process. And I was like, I hate the process. And if you tell me to trust this process one more time, I'm good. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But like I would get so mad. But it's true. It's true. You have to trust that process, and you have to um the days that don't work out, you have to be able to give yourself grace. And I have struggled trying to find the difference between compassion and laziness because I'm like, I
Mm.
I attend therapy. I started therapy, I don't know, 6 years ago ish, because I needed help with my headspace because
Mhm.
I recognized I really did need some help. And so we've worked a lot on some of that mental talk and that mindset and those kinds of things. And um, oh, my train of thought just jumped the track.
It's okay.
one of the things that she has really, really worked on with me is having compassion for myself. And because I am like, I'm so hard on myself and I have such high expectations of myself. She's like, you are not being realistic. Like, I'm like, but I want this. Like, I want this so much. And she's like, you can still want it and still have compassion. And I'm like, okay. So like trying to lean into the difference between I'm letting myself off the hook and I am giving myself some grace has been really a tough thing for me to find that balance. But sometimes having compassion for yourself is saying, I missed the workout this morning, or I ate like a jerk today, and now I'm going to get back on track.
Hmm.
It's not I'm gonna beat myself up or I'm gonna go punish myself with hours on the treadmill because I had a donut.
Hmm.
It's okay, I had a donut and now I need to go have some protein and some vegetables and
Yes.
find some balance here. Um, but that has been a hard thing for me to wrap my brain around because it ties into my idea of mental toughness. And I feel like I need to be solid all the time. And that's not true. Like, I mean, you need to be solid all the time, but you don't need to punish yourself when you
Yeah.
are human. Because
Yeah.
you're gonna make mistakes.
Oh, absolutely. And failure, I kind of hate using the word failure, but we'll just roll with it. Mistakes or failures just part of the process. I mean, it really is. And in my opinion, that's the best part of the process because that's how you learn, right? Your failures, say you have a weight goal or you have a food goal and you don't hit that goal, quote unquote failed. Well, that's when you can take a step back and reflect on it. What happened? What went wrong? What could have you have done better? And then that's a teaching moment for yourself. And that teaching moment, you're going to grow stronger. So for the next time when it happens, you can say to yourself, hey, I've been down this path. I've tried this and it didn't work. Let's try something different. And who knows, you might fail again. And if you fail again, take a step back, reflect, and come at it from a different angle.
My boys have a wrestling coach, and he's been fantastic with their mindset. But I also pick up on some of the things that he's telling them, and one of my favorite phrases that he has used, failing forward.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes, yes, we're failing forward. Like it in my mind, it's not a failure unless we didn't learn something. Like
Right.
if you keep repeating that same thing over and over again, then yeah, we maybe need to look at that. But if you didn't hit your numbers one day, or you missed the workout, or whatever, what did you learn from that? Are you scheduling your workouts at the right time? Are you waiting too long to eat? Are you surrounding yourself with things that are tempting you so that you don't have that self-control? Um, like there's lots of things, right? And if we're not learning from those moments, then yeah, we are maybe failing. But if you it comes back to reflection, like you said. Take a moment,
Yeah.
reflect on that.
Absolutely, just like you said, if you're learning from it, is it really failure? No, it's not. It's just a learning experience, and people really beat themselves up. I mean, I feel when I sit back and there's a few groups I'm a part of, fitness groups and stuff. And just every day I'm reading things about, man, yesterday I binge eat. Um, I had over 1,000 calories I was supposed to have. Tomorrow I'm gonna, do 20 miles on the treadmill, and I'm not gonna eat for like the first 6 hours of the day. And it's like this very unhealthy relationship, with food and themselves that they have. And that's just not the right approach because you're punishing yourself at that point. And if you're punishing yourself, nobody likes to be punished. If you're punishing yourself, is it really going to work? You got to have a different mindset going into it. And I think you nailed it, right on the head with that. And a bit ago, you mentioned something about habits. Habits are obviously super important when it comes to this journey. So, throughout your experience, like what habits have you distilled, and how did you distill those habits?
So habits for me that has been the key to making anything that lasted. I have to share, I am not by nature a morning person, like at all. My husband actually used to give me such a hard time because I wanted to be the one staying up late and he wanted to be the one. Oh, I just hit something. Sorry, hit my space bar. Um, he wanted to be up early, and
Mhm.
I really hated to be up early, but kids, work, all of those things, you know. So when I had the chance to sleep in, I was like, I'm sleeping in, and I would sleep till like 10 o'clock. And getting up was always hard. Um, and I mentally told myself that, like, oh, this is so hard to wake up, whatever. And then I started on this journey, and guess what? Guess when people want to exercise? They want to exercise before they go to work or after they get home. They do not
Mhm.
want to exercise at noon when I want to exercise. And so I had to start, I started a morning class and it's 6 a.m. And so I have to be up by like between 5:15, 5:30, depending on what's going on, to be ready. And a lot of times I will work out with my 6 a.m. class. Most of my 6 a.m. class are women who have been with me for five I have a couple that have been with me since I started. And um knowing that somebody was counting on me to be up forced me to get out of bed, right?
Yeah.
But I initially it was a chore. It sucked. I hated it. And I had to start telling myself a different story. I had to start telling myself, okay, I love this. I love the workout. I love the ladies I'm with. I love this. And once I started doing that, it became a lot easier. And honestly, after the first like week, maybe two, it really started to just be part of what I was doing, part of who I am. And I think you have to tell yourself that when you're building those habits, this is part of who I am. I'm a healthy person who exercises in the morning.
Mhm.
And when you tell yourself that, it solidifies some other habits throughout the day too. Like, oh, I'm a healthy person. So I'm going to make sure that I'm drinking plenty of water. And I'm a healthy person. So I'm going to make sure I'm eating a vegetable and
Mhm.
getting some protein. And then I think all of those habits kind of have a trickle down effect because if I'm exercising and I'm trying to put on muscle, I need the protein. So I'm not spinning my wheels in the gym. I don't want that workout to go to waste. Like, I need to make
Yeah.
sure I'm hitting those protein numbers. And if I'm eating all this protein, I got to get my workout in because I want my body to utilize that for what it what it's there for.
Right.
Um, but habits, and for me, I am a baby step kind of girl. And I have done a few crazy all in. I did 75 hard, and that is a crazy all in, you go kind of a thing. But I do the very best, the things that happen that are most sustainable for me start with a baby step. What can I do? And
Mhm.
it comes back to the precision nutrition on a scale of 1 to 10. How hard is it for me to get on a workout? Well, at this point, it's I don't even think about it. It's just what I do.
Just
But
habit.
when I started, it was like, okay, this is kind of hard, but not super hard because I enjoy it. Enjoy moving my body. Um, and like so like water's another easy habit for me. I enjoy drinking water. It's easy. So I started with like, okay, I'm gonna hit 60 ounces, 64 ounces, whatever the like general recommendation from the government, like 8 ounce glasses of water a day. I don't know where that number comes from, but
I don't
um
know either.
that's what I started with the number that I'd been taught all growing up. You need 8 cups of water a day. And so I started there and then I was like, okay, can I get half my body weight in ounces of water? And then I've pushed into a gallon a day and I don't love a gallon a day. I don't stay with that one. But um for me it's taking a baby step and then doing a little bit more with my nutrition. It's like, okay, I'm going to make sure every meal has protein, or sometimes it's I'm going to make sure I hit my breakfast. Like if I divided out all of my macros and split them into 3 meals or 4 meals or whatever I'm eating, um how many grams of protein do I need, how many grams of carbs do I need, like it depends
Mhm.
on how I'm operating at that particular moment in time. But I will break it down into something that's doable for a week. I'm just going to focus on breakfast. We'll worry about lunch and dinner later, but I'm just going to focus on breakfast and get that one solid. And once I have that locked in, then I add lunch and then I add
Mhm.
dinner. And so for me, habits Habits work best when I break them into chunks.
Yeah.
And and some of that stems from, I think, my marathon training too. Like they tell you, only increase your running so much per week. And so I'd have a plan and I'd increase things just a little bit each week. And so it wasn't like I started at 26 miles. I started at a mile and worked myself up there. So I don't
Yeah.
know. And I like tracking things. I like the gold star. I like so when
Oh, you're a
I
tracker.
track things, yes, yes, I love a good streak. I had a meditation streak. My Calm app would allow me to do a streak on it. And so I had a meditation streak of like 1,297 days or something, and then I missed a day. And it
Oh
was
no.
so sad.
That's such a long streak though.
It
Um,
it was like years.
I really like how you said baby steps. That's something I preach myself, with my clients. I find people when they start their journey, they go all in way too quick, right? They start worrying about their calories and then tracking everything to an exact science and hitting all these workouts, and they're just going all in so hard where they don't break it down. So what happens is they get frustrated because it's a lot of stuff to do, right out the gate, right? So one, you don't have any habits set. You still have a bunch of bad habits you're working on. You're going all in with this fitness journey. It's going to get so overwhelming. And then, once the motivation wears off, once that initial excitement of starting your fitness journey goes away, there's no discipline in there yet for them to fall back on and keep progressing them throughout their fitness journey. So when you say baby steps, like that's the best way to do it. First let's focus on breakfast. Let's focus on within your first hour of waking up, let's hit 25 30 grams of protein and drink 16 ounces of water. Let's do that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we're going to evaluate that and see where you are on that scale of 1 to 10 of how hard or difficult this is, and we're going to go from there. Then once we hit that, let's focus on a good healthy snack before, in between breakfast and lunch, or if you're hungry, during that time frame, and taking those initial baby steps so that way, you can build those habits and build those disciplines, so that way when times do get tough, you at least have a little bit of a foundation that's already developed for yourself. So yeah, I completely agree with you on baby steps. Like that's huge. That's what I preach. That's stuff I do for myself as well. Breaking down your big goals and the smaller goals and so on. So yeah, absolutely, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, like, I understand those mentalities that want to be all in, and I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. Like, you go be all in, but when you burn out, here's your bare minimum. This is the 1 or 2 things that you are gonna stick to come hell or high water
Hmm.
that and you can do the rest of it. I'm not saying you can't, but when you have the day that's gonna come, this is your 2 things that you're gonna make sure they happen, and that's it.
Hmm.
And I think that approach tends to work for most personalities, but there are a handful that really just struggle with the baby steps because we all want that quick fix. We all want things to happen
Hmm.
right now. And most of the things worth having, it's actually the journey that is worth having. It's not the end result. The self discovery that comes through some of those journeys is more valuable to me than the 20
Yeah.
pounds I lost or, whatever. Um, but but every journey has their share of setbacks and trials and things that really test you, like, do you really want this? And so I think that as you approach that, if you can keep that in your brain, recognizing, okay, I am going to have setbacks. I am going to keeping that mindset, right? Um, but now I want to know how you personally overcome some of those setbacks or struggles that you have had, and what have been some that have come up on your journey.
Yeah, I've had so many. Like like I mentioned earlier, I've had more setbacks and quote unquote failures than I had good positive moments when I really think about it. But then again, I'm super overcritical about myself, and I think a lot of us are to a certain degree. But you know, starting at the very beginning of my fitness journey was a huge setback in itself. Again, 350 pounds. Like I had really bad type 2 diabetes. Let's put it this way, like, my A1C, if anyone, knows what that is, I'm sure that there's people out there, but was like 12.4, 12.5, like so high. I was getting up, 6 times throughout the night to use the bathroom. And there was so much sugar in my urine, like the toilet seat would be sticky. Like it was
Wow.
just bad. So talk about, low moments, like that was a kick in the teeth, right? Um, so that was a setback in itself because I had to dig myself out of a very mentally dark place, being like, wow, I really let myself get like this. Um, but it was also the ember I needed, to spark that fire, to get myself together and make something happen. So fast forward throughout my journey, man, I've overcome injuries from powerlifting. My first powerlifting competition, I tore my pec minor. So that was a huge setback. I, couldn't work that out for a while, had to go through extensive, physical therapy and, a lot of mobility drills and re-strengthening. So going from that to where, man, I was, bench pressing over 350 pounds to, a 10-pound dumbbell, like that's a huge crush to your ego a little bit, So that was a
A
huge
little bit.
setback. So that, was a huge setback. And I think what kept me pushing forward, it goes back to the mindset, right? It's just the season, just a chapter, in that journey, in that moment. And got to keep that strong mentality to push forward because eventually we're going to overcome it, right? It's how can we overcome it? How can we build upon it and make ourselves stronger after that setback? So, on top of injuries, lower back injuries, tearing my pec minor, even a little bit of yo-yo dieting here and there. I let myself, even with powerlifting, it's about, eating food and getting strong. I let myself go a couple times during that with, eating too much food and getting a little bit too much weight that I needed to, not gain. So, even
The
last,
bulk is way funner than the cut.
it's so much better. Even this time about this time last year, I had to get my appendix removed. I had to have an emergency appendix surgery, and that put me back, a good 3 or 4 weeks. So for that recovery, I couldn't lift anything, I couldn't do anything, I lost a lot of strength, and I've seen stuff like that like really take people off their journey altogether. They've never are able to bounce back from it because they didn't distill discipline and good habits. So bouncing back from that. So I mean, kind of like I said before, like this whole journey, this whole process is all about the journey as a whole. And there's so many setbacks and so many things that are getting in our way. Like it's far from perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And you can't use those setbacks as excuses, to, fall off the wagon or I'm going to start again next week because next week going to turn into the next month before you know it, you're down the road 2 years later, 40 pounds heavier than what you started from the begin with. Um, so those were some of my bigger ones. I don't think I've had anything major other than that. But what about yourself? I know you've definitely have come across some and kind of share your experiences and how you overcame them.
So a couple that come to mind, my first big setback, I had made a lot of progress. I felt really good about myself. I felt very confident in my skin, and that was my initial goal. I wanted to have the scale say a certain number. I wanted to have a certain look, and I really wanted a six pack. And as a female, that is really, really hard. And it has my thoughts on that have shifted as I have progressed. But I was doing so awesome, and then I just felt off. Like things, I was so exhausted. And then I started kind of gaining a little bit of weight, and nothing had changed. I was monitoring things. I'm like, what is going on? So I ended up going in and being looked at, and I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is it's called polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it affects a lot of women. Um, but it's you have cysts on your ovaries and they produce excess estrogen, and then that
Mm,
estrogen sometimes will convert over into androgens. And so for a while it was really great because I had this like boost of like testosterone essentially, and but testosterone in women being super high doesn't create great things.
mhm,
And so that was my first real big setback, and trying to figure out how to balance my hormones. And you have the fitness influencers and coaches that are like, it's not your hormones, it's not your hormones. And then
mm,
sometimes it legitimately is your hormones. And
absolutely.
and so that's I blamed myself for a long time. I'm like, I did this to myself. I did this because I overexercised. I did this like I mean, so I there was a lot of self blame in that process, and I allowed myself to be a victim for a while. I'm like, well, I have PCOS, so I just can't do this and I just can't do that. And finally I was like, no, I'm not this person. So I decided I just need to learn. I need to learn. I need to figure this out. And um I I didn't want to do so the recommendations for me were hormone therapy, which is birth control. And it doesn't do well in my body. Like, I struggle so hard. I feel like a total crazy person when I'm on birth control. I'm pretty sure my husband would vouch for that too. And so that was solution number one. Solution number two was to put me on metformin, and that's a diabetic drug. So
Mhm.
I tried that. I felt like absolute garbage. I felt like such garbage. I can't even describe how awful I felt on that drug. My stomach did not love it. I was throwing up. I was having diarrhea. Like, I mean, sorry, that's like way TMI, but it was awful. It was awful. And I did that for a while, and I finally decided it's not worth it. I will deal with the side effects. I will deal with the other stuff. I'm not doing this. And um, then I stumbled on uh, page, Dr. Jolene Brighton, and she wrote a book called Beyond the Pill, and she focused a lot on women's health and hormones and hormone regulation. And so I started researching a lot of things and a lot of her protocols, and started taking some of the things that she recommended that were like herbal supplements. And like, I know that there's a lot of people that frown upon that, that they're like, oh, like it's very woo woo, and what you're
Mhm.
taking isn't always like regulated. And but I got to a point doing some of the protocols that she had recommended where I felt amazing. And um, so I think that there is a lot to taking care of yourself, but it also stemmed back to making sure I was following those basic habits, getting enough sleep, getting my exercise in, listening to my body, not overdoing it, not doing hours upon hours of cardio, like making sure that there was a lot of balance in all of the things that I was doing. But that was huge. That was such a hard moment for me, getting through that piece. And then I was still struggling. I was struggling with a lot of pain. Um, and so it was recommended that I get a hysterectomy, and I put that off and put that off and put that off until I finally couldn't put that off anymore. And I ended up getting a hysterectomy 2 years ago and recovering from that. Like, some women bounce back and they're like back to life as normal in like 6 weeks. I was not that girl.
Mm,
And that has been so incredibly hard, and the shift in just my body since
mhm.
then. And my initial goal was to look good naked. That was like my out loud what I said my goal was.
Right.
And I mean, I think we all want that to some extent.
Oh, for sure.
But
Yeah, I think that's kind of everyone's, like, bucket list thing, you know?
but as I have been on this journey, I have recognized so much more value in my health than what my appearance is.
Hmm.
And as I'm getting older, I am recognizing more and more how exercise and my nutrition make me feel. Like I want the energy. I want to be able to go do things. I want to not have to crash on the couch early. I want to keep up with I've got teenage boys and I want to keep up with them. I want to go do all of the things with them. And so that to me is more important than just looking good. The looking good comes as like icing on the cake. And so I've let go of some of the things that were super, super important to me in the beginning, like needing to weigh a certain number.
Hmm.
And yes, I'm still working on building more muscle and lowering my body fat percentage, but I've learned to let go of the scale and that number really, really mattering to me because I can recognize like I have way more muscle and way more um, other things that are benefiting me, and that muscle is more dense. So I'm gonna
Absolutely.
weigh more if I'm strong and I want to keep being strong. Do I want to give up the strength to weigh 120 pounds again? Like I don't. I would rather be strong.
Yeah, and muscle development is so important. I mean, people understand like when it comes to like a weight loss journey, prioritizing muscle is a lot better than prioritizing burning burning calories, basically, right? Spending hours on a treadmill. The reason is, the more, just to put it in very simple terms, the more muscle you have, the more calories your body is going to be, burning throughout the day naturally. And this
I
is where I'm very strongly, kind of opinionated, but there's also some scientific backing with it. I hate the whole metabolism BS out there, right? So you hear people, oh, as I get older, my metabolism's slowing down, so my weight's going up. Like, no, you're getting older, you're losing muscle mass, you're eating the same amount of calories, you're losing muscle mass, your body's not burning as many calories throughout the day, so you're gaining fat, right? It's not your metabolism. Prioritize strength training, build that muscle. It's almost like an insurance policy for your fat burning, as you get older. So I like how you touch on that, and then also the scale. Like, the scale is just a tool. It's just a one tool of measurement, and you should never rely on that scale. Just recently on Instagram, I posted a picture of me at 255. When I first started my transition from powerlifting to bodybuilding, to a picture of me at 245, and it's a completely different physique. Like, I actually asked people like, hey, how many pounds do you think there's a difference between these two photos? And most people said generally around 40 to 50 pounds. I'm like, no, it's only 10 pounds. There's only a 10-pound difference. So that scale will deceive you. You got to measure
yes.
more than just that scale. You got to look at your
Yes.
progress photos, like how you feel internally, how your clothes fit, right? So these are all things that you also need to be measuring, not just that scale. For what I care, you can throw that scale out the window and never step on it again, because there's way more better things out there to measure your success than what that number says.
Well, and as you were talking, I thought of one thing that I wanted to add to the muscle mass. I just read Stacy Sims, Dr. Stacy Sims, was her second book, and I can't think of the name, and it's not right here in front of me. But her second book that she put out, she talks about how not only is muscle important in like burning those calories, but our bodies, the more lean muscle we have, the more efficiently we utilize nutrients. So
Yeah.
while
Yep.
that does boost our metabolic rate, and it's a small amount, but it's enough that it matters. Everything matters. All of it adds up. But our body actually processes those nutrients better when we
Hmm.
have more muscle. So there's so much more to that, and the
Yeah.
body is so cool. There's so much that we don't know that I'm like, just keep doing the like, just keep being a healthy you.
Yeah.
But
And there's
go
even
ahead.
studies coming out now that are showing that the more muscle mass you have, the less cancer resistant you are. And if you do get cancer, you have better chances of fighting the cancer. So Like it just seems like, all these studies are coming out and all these things are being studied upon muscle mass, like muscle mass is very important. Like you should prioritize that muscle versus, how many calories you're burning and, how many hours you're spending on a treadmill. You know, yes, that's important, right? Your cardio is important, for, your heart health and other things, but prioritize your muscle. Instead of an hour on a treadmill and 20 minutes of lifting weights, do 40 minutes of lifting weights and 20 minutes on the treadmill, right? So
Yes,
it's
yes.
just about prioritizing the right things in the right order, but combining all of it into one big picture, because it's all important. It is, but there's just a little bit more important than other things.
Yes. Well, and I feel like it depends on where you're at on your journey. If you're still just trying to like build the basics, like just moving is great. Like,
Oh yeah,
but
100%.
once you're a little ways in, some of that starts to shift and change. Um, but there was something else I wanted to say. My brain is struggling to remember.
That's why we're,
Um,
we're we're bouncing around between all these different things. It's great. I do want to touch on one thing, that you and I are both like super opinionated about, and I think we both strongly agree on this, and that's fad diets. I can't stand them. So I know you have your personal experiences with it. I've had my personal experiences. I touched on it a little bit, but what about you and fad diets? Like, what is your standpoint on those?
so my thought process, and I tell this to all of my clients, and I've had to learn how to come at this with a little less passion and opinion, because I think I have freaked a few people out with my definite opinion about fad diet. But I when somebody my brother, he's like, "Hey, what do you think about the carnivore diet?" I said,
Mhm.
"Where are you getting fiber?" Like, let's
Yeah,
let's just let's just logic this out. What are you eliminating from your diet and how essential is it for your overall health? If you're eliminating fiber, like that's a big deal.
mhm.
Like you need to you need to have fiber. That's important.
It is. Yeah, for
Um,
your gut health and everything else. Yeah, absolutely.
so that's my first question. Are you eliminating major things that are going to leave you deprived in nutrients? The next question is it something you can stick with for life?
Mhm.
And if it's not, because there are some things that I have done to like give myself a little boost. If it's not sustainable, what is your plan to back out of it? Because like counting calories. So I also have a question for you on, do you think counting macros is a fad diet, because that has been super trendy?
That's a really good question. It really is. Huh. I mean, it is kind of fad-ish, I guess, but I think as long as you're not being restrictive with it, you know what I mean? I think as long as you're getting balanced nutrition, so making sure, one, I'm a huge advocate on high protein. So protein is super important. Like you should
Yes,
prioritize your appointment. I'm sorry, your protein, and I can list several reasons why. Um, and your carbs and your fats, they're equally as important, right? You need your fats for your bodily function and organ health and things on those, like your hormones, and then your carbohydrates are your body's natural energy source. So I think as long as you're balancing them out, it's fine. And I can kind of see it as a fad diet in a way because of that, because you're tracking things, and that's just kind of where it stems from. But at the same time, I think it promotes more of a healthy, balanced living lifestyle, right? So if
I
you're just
agree.
focused on counting your macros and everything, and you're getting all, your balance in there with your protein, your fats, and your carbs, really you're just living a healthy, lifestyle at that point. So, and it's sustainable. When I think about fad diets, I think of being restrictive and it's non-sustainable. Keto, carnivore diet, paleo, intermittent fasting, all those things. So yes, I can see how some people can look at it as fad, but my opinion is I don't think of it as a fad diet.
So I agree with you. I also have gone back and forth on counting calories and macros, and then I stop because I burn out. I get sick of tracking everything. I get sick of weighing everything. And so for me, like it's not sustainable. That's not what I want to do all the time. But it also, like, about once a year, I come back to that because I kind of, like, get out of control with, "Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, I can have that, I can have that," and I've gotten to a point where I've done it long enough that I can eyeball something, "Oh, yeah, that's probably 4 ounces. Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably a cup. That's probably I do know what 2 tablespoons of peanut butter looks like, and it's sad."
It's very
But
sad.
but it's like I find myself needing to come back and remind myself, take a refresher on what portions look like again every so often. But that is one of my keys. Okay, if we're gonna do something crazy, what is your plan to pull out of that? And it is not sustainable to be in a deficit. I think some people, like, I have a few clients that they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't need your help anymore. I'm just gonna stick to my calories and macros that you gave me." And I'm like, "Okay, but we don't want to be in a deficit 12 months out of the year. Like,
Right.
you have to cycle this. You have to be in a deficit, and then we can come up and we can go to maintenance. You don't have to gain. I'm not asking you to gain weight, but let's maintain what we've lost for a little while, and then we can go back
Hmm.
and get back in that deficit again. But you don't want to stay in that deficit. And I think people think that they need to stay there because they haven't hit the goal yet. And if you have a lot of weight to lose, sometimes that is a very
Yeah.
long-term
It
goal.
is. You kind of have to go through those cycles to where you're in a deficit for, 3 months, and you kind of bring those calories back up to a maintenance, let your body kind of regenerate a little bit, and you're eating at maintenance level. So even if you focus more on strength training at that point, you can even put on a little bit of muscle, and then you start cutting again. You got a little bit more muscle mass, so you're going to burn a little bit more calories, and it's going to make that cut, a little bit easier this next go around. So absolutely.
Well, and for me, I love to eat. I love to eat. And so to be in a deficit all the time, I'm
Hmm.
like, no, no, I would rather set a tiny bit heavier than what I'm
Yeah, absolutely.
supposed to. I mean, I supposed to what I maybe my goal is, and be able to enjoy things. But that is why I like macros, is because it is sustainable, and you can cycle things, and but recognizing you're not supposed to be in the deficit all the time, and
Yeah, and
allowing yourself to, like, I love chips and salsa. I love chips and salsa so much that if you told me I had to be on, in fact, I did paleo for a little while at the beginning of my journey, and I still had chips and salsa because I was not giving that up.
well,
So I even cheated on my on my fad diet, but I tried that. I've tried some crazy diets. Cabbage soup diet, that was a big
oh
thing for
my.
a while.
The
But
old
also I
grapefruit
love
diet from what, like the 80s, and
yeah, I love cabbage soup. So I will still eat the cabbage soup.
ugh.
Freaking delicious, and it's a great way to get in tons of vegetables, but I'm not living on it. But I mean, I think we've all been through that phase where we want so badly to have that quick result, and we live in a world where, like, I can order something from Amazon and have it to my door in a few
Mhm.
hours. And so it's so easy to fall into, oh, well, so and so did keto and they lost 20 pounds. Well, yeah, they lost 20 pounds of water. They're they've
Yes,
deprived their body of
absolutely.
carbs.
Yeah, they depleted their glycogen levels, and people don't understand, like, when you go keto, that you can drop weight pretty quick, and it's initially, water weight. You deplete your muscles of, its glycogen stores. Gosh, what is the measurement? Like, 1 gram of carb intake equals 3 grams of water, so it's like triple the weight. So of course that's gonna deplete pretty quick, and you can lose 5, 10, 15 pounds in a couple weeks very easily. But it's not fat. I mean, you might have lost a pound of fat if you're in a calorie deficit, but it's all water, and that's why I hate fad diets. So one, kind of going back to the macro counting. Even if people, like, you don't even necessarily have to count, like, carbs and fats. Like some of my clients, what I like to do is, hey, let's focus on your protein. Let's count that along with your calories, and then where your carbs and your fats fall, let's just let them fall naturally with just with the foods that you enjoy, right? As long as we're getting enough of each one, that's all that matters. And as long as you're having some type of physical activity, right, to use those carbohydrates, that's what matters. Now if you're not going to exercise, you're not going to work out, and you're only going to strength train like once or twice a week, I might tell you to watch the carbs a little bit, because your body's not going to be utilizing all the carbs that it needs to. Then it's just wasted energy at that point. But as long as calories, I guess, are in check, that's really what all that matters. But there is some manipulation you can do to make things a little bit better for you.
Well, and it's tricky. So I have wrestlers, and weight actually matters. And it's so hard
Hmm.
for my soul to just get on board with some of their weight cutting shenanigans. But I'm like, okay, we're going to cut carbs, and we're going to
Yeah.
we're going to water load you, and then we're going to cut carbs, and then we're going to trickle the water down so that you can make weight. And then like, but you can manipulate that so easy, and it's not actually fat. It's not the weight we want to be losing. I can go poop and I can lose weight. Like, but that's not
Absolutely.
the weight I want to lose. I want to lose fat. Like,
Right.
that's what's going to
Abs-
make my body look the way I want it to look. And so it's interesting what gets in our heads. But going back to the scale, like I have been an obsessive scale person, and then I to where I'd weigh myself, and then I'd work out, and then I'd weigh myself, and then I'd eat, and then I'd weigh myself, and I'm like, okay, I got to stop
mm,
because this isn't healthy. But I've also gone to where I totally didn't weigh myself at all for a long time because I recognized how unhealthy of a relationship I had. And I've gone back to I weigh myself once a day. I want to see what I did yesterday. Like, how did that affect my body? And it can be a very effective tool, and it can also mess with your brain, but you have to let go of the excitement of that number. Like, when it goes down, it's not exciting, it's just information. What you did yesterday helped your body in some way. Maybe
mhm,
your sodium was down, maybe your whatever, like maybe you had a few less carbs. And back to your carb and fat, like, start with calories,
mhm,
then calories and protein. And I always tell people, if we're counting full macros, like, your carbs and fats can fluctuate unless you have a very specific goal. If you're training for a marathon, we're probably going to be carb heavy.
mhm,
If you are struggling with some hormonal stuff, we might be a little more fat heavy.
mhm.
If you are just trying to lose weight, eat what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, make sure the protein and the calories. And I had a coach tell me, and I have continued with this: calories are king and protein is queen, and they are a good pair.
Yes.
So you got to keep them together, and everything else is just
Yeah.
whatever,
Just
unless you're
let them
unless you're
fall.
doing something very specific.
Yeah. No, 100%. And that's why I can't stand fad diets, because they're so restrictive. Like, look at keto. You got to cut carbs. I mean, there's don't get me wrong, there are a few people out there that can have that sustainable lifestyle to where they're perfectly fine being on keto and are really good at it. How they operate and function, I don't have the freaking slightest idea, but it's possible. But for the a vast majority of people, it's just not sustainable. And what happens when you start restricting yourself, right? You tell yourself, no, you can't have that. What happens? You really want that, like really bad. And that's what happens. Then you start giving into the temptations, and then you start going through that vicious cycle of, yo-yo dieting, basically. Like, ah, shit, I had that cupcake. I wasn't supposed to have it because I really, really wanted it, and now I ate it. Now I got to start all over, and I feel bad. I'm gonna beat myself over it, and do 2 miles on a treadmill. You know what I mean? So I just think
But
when you
then
start doing those, what's that?
I was just gonna say, then you start to form this bad relationship with
Yes.
food, where you're giving food morality, and food is not good and it's not bad. Food doesn't do good things for me, and food doesn't do bad things
Hmm.
to me. Like, food is food is food, but is what you do with it.
Right. Absolutely. And it's all about balance and having a healthy relationship with food. So that's again why I like to focus on habits, right? So most of my clients I work with, like, I guess my demographic is busy parents who struggle with their weight, and they want to get healthier but really don't know where to start, and they're busy and they got bad food habits, so on and so forth. So that's where I like to start, is let's develop a good relationship with food, because that's what's important, right? Yeah, if you have that cookie, or if you have that slice of pie, it's okay, it's fine, don't beat yourself up over it. Let's just focus
Yeah.
on your calories, and if we gotta, if you really need that nightly Rice Krispie treat, or whatever, we'll fit it in. It's fine. You don't need to restrict yourself. There's other things we can do to make sure you're still enjoying the foods that you like. And that's again where fad diets come into play because it restricts you and tells you the things you can and cannot do. And it's just not sustainable for most people. I know it wasn't
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. No, no, nothing that I have done that's been I think I had tried keto for all of like 12 hours and I was like, this is
Uh,
stupid. I can't even have an avocado. Like I'm out. Like this is dumb. Um, but I have played with intermittent fasting because it is a great way if you don't want to track calories and macros. It's a great way to limit what you're eating as long as you're not prone to that binge. And that's what I
mhm,
did. I would go and I would be so hungry. I would be so hungry. And then I would like binge because I'm like, I only have 8 hours that I get to eat, or I only have 6 hours or whatever my window was. And it really messed with me mentally, where like
mhm.
there are days where I don't eat till noon and I'm fine because I'm not hungry. I'm just going to tune into my body. I'm going to listen to where I'm at. But if I go too long, I know that if I go way too long, I'm going to binge at that next meal because I'm ravenous.
Well, that's
And that's
ghrelin.
where I end up in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, that's ghrelin. That's your hunger hormone, and there's no way escaping it. Once ghrelin hits, I don't care what your willpower is. Once ghrelin's knocking on your door, your hunger hormone, yeah, you can't escape it. You're gonna eat. Like, it's just inevitable. Again, so I hate fad diets because intermittent fasting, you're shortening, you're initially shortening your window of eating. Now, don't get me wrong, intermittent fasting can be a great tool, right? So, if, like for me, example, I'm kind of pretty much intermittent fasting right now because my calories are so low that I want a smaller window of time throughout my day to where I'm feeling full longer. So that way, I'm not, eating small meals and staying hungry throughout the rest of the day. So it's a good strategy that works for me. And I have the willpower to be able to be like, okay, I'm not going to eat my first meal until, I usually have it about 9 in the morning. Um, so it can be a great tool, but it's not necessary to lose weight. So when you
No.
start looking at all these fad diets, of why people are losing weight, what's the common factor between all these fad diets? They're in
What?
a calorie freaking deficit. That's the
Oh,
common
yes.
factor. They're
Yes.
they're in a calorie that's all that matters. So you're doing keto, all right? You're taking carbohydrates out of your diet. That's not what's making you lose weight. What's making you lose weight is you're in a calorie deficit. You're doing intermittent fasting. You're eating less
Well,
calories throughout the day. You're
the
in a calorie deficit.
the other thing too is if you take an apples to apples comparison. So if you took somebody who is not necessarily trying to lose weight and put them on the keto diet or kept them like in their same calorie range on the keto diet, they're going to see the water weight drop,
Hmm.
but that's it. They're not going to see the fat drop. They're not going to see. So like that's the other thing, like I have to like stop and think about when something comes out that's like, oh, this is the new craze, this is the new thing. Is it healthy?
Right.
Like
And is it
that is
sustainable?
a number one qualifier for me. Is it healthy?
Hmm.
Should I be doing this? What am I going to do to my body? People like that do keto, you don't understand what you're doing to your body. You don't understand the process that your body has to go through to convert. So carbs and fats, or sorry, protein and fat, your body cannot produce amino acids or fatty acids because that's what those break down into.
Hmm.
But your body can convert those fatty acids and amino acids or fats and proteins into the glucose that carbs break down into. But the
Yes.
process is so hard on your body to do that. And people don't understand what they're doing with that. And unless they've taken uh, like biochemistry, like
Hmm.
what your body is going through and how hard that is on your body. And so like I that's my qualifier. Is it healthy? Is it effective? And what's the plan to come out of this? Because like with
Hmm.
counting calories and macros, you have that plan of like, okay, I'm going to cut, I'm going to be in a deficit for X amount of time, and then I'm going to jump back up and I'm going to be in maintenance, and then we're going to come back, we're going to go back to deficit, and then we're going to be in maintenance. And I mean, a lot of it depends on your goals. Like, are you looking to build muscle? Are you looking for body recomposition? Are you looking just to lose fat? Like, what is the goal here?
Hmm.
And but I think that's also why people push into cardio because they're like, oh look, I burned like 1,000 calories on the treadmill. And what they don't recognize is that, yes, you're burning all these calories, but are you burning are you burning fat? Like, is that gonna convert over into fat loss in your body?
Right.
And it it's not always. It's sometimes you're burning up that muscle.
Yeah,
You're burning stuff that you work really, really hard to get. So it's it
absolutely.
it's definitely worth having the knowledge. I mean, and it's taken me years to get here to learn all of these things that, oh, this is why this isn't good. And I was fascinated in the Joel Jameson class, the bioforce conditioning class, how how much your two systems need each other. So like like you said, don't leave cardio completely, because that cardio, like when your cardio is good, your lifting is going to be a little bit better, and
Hmm.
when you have that muscle, your cardio is going to be a little bit better, and that's why they go together so good, but you have to
Yes.
find that right balance.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, it is all about balance. And then you mentioned, 1,000 calories burned on, on the treadmill, and, you don't know if it's fat or muscle. And, that's huge because you get a lot of, we call, cardio bunnies out there, who, one, they probably don't eat enough protein. So they're doing, hours upon hours of cardio. They're not getting enough protein in. So they don't have, those foundational building blocks for muscle. So chances are their body's going to start burning muscle for fuel because they're not having everything else in check. So I mean that's a real thing that happens to people. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's me and fad diets. I don't know if you have anything you want to touch on that, but I mean I could probably talk about it for hours because I absolutely freaking hate them. It's actually one of the reasons why I got into being a nutrition coach. Is I got so pissed off with all these fad diets out there and just seeing people struggle with them because it's so heavily pushed, right? There's billions of marketing dollars that goes into these things, and knowing my background and how I fell for them and my struggles with them and seeing people do the same thing, I just want to be like, no, don't do it. Stop. Do it this way. Do the scientific way. I promise it's way better. And unfortunately, some people listen, some people don't. I mean, it's just part of the game. But that was one of the reasons why I got into nutrition coaching, is because that stuff makes me so angry. Like I can't stand it. Um,
Yes.
and based on that, I know you have like a certain demographic of people you like to coach. So how did you, like, what's your demographic, what's your expertise, and why do you choose that, and what makes you relate with it?
I started out that it was like anybody and everybody. I just wanted to help everybody, right? And because I know how good it felt once I finally started to make progress and could love myself and feel comfortable in my skin. And so I started out with anyone and everyone. And as I have progressed in my journey as a coach, I have found that it's women. I really want to work with women, and women who are pre-menopausal to menopause, because of the experiences I've had with hormones and how discounted you feel when somebody says, "Oh, it's not your hormones. You just need to this." And I'm like, "Yes, but also I'm gonna have some compassion for that, because I feel that those estrogen and progesterone fluctuations and all of the things that come with even just being like a woman, it's it's hard. It's super
Hmm.
hard." And so I think and so many of the things out there that are studied, all of the studies, it's done on men. And so we women are like, okay, well, I guess like this applies to me too. And in some ways, yes, but some ways they don't. And so like that is kind of where I've found my own niche, is those women um, who are in that stage of life where things are starting to fluctuate and nobody's listening to you, because you go in and get tested and they're like, "Oh, your levels are the same. Like your levels
Hmm.
are in the range of normal." And
I hate that
so
I hate that so much.
I like, but it's not my normal. This isn't my
Right.
normal. And
Exactly.
so being able to, and really I think that the like you see the people that are like, we're going to optimize your hormones. Well, mm, a lot of that is just comes down to healthy habits, but
Mhm.
having somebody that will listen to you and when you say, "I feel off, I feel like things are different this week than they were last week," or, when you're going through some of those struggles. So that has been my demographic that I love to work with. And I also love to work with athletes. I've
Mhm.
worked with a gymnast, I worked with the soccer team, my boys are wrestlers. And so I really do love to work with athletes because they are very coachable.
They really
Because
are.
they've been coached their whole lives. And
Yes.
so that's been a fun one, but my very passion and love is to work with women who have been in my same shoes that have struggled.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's where I really love to.
Well, it makes it relatable. You know what I mean? You have compassion towards them because you know you can relate with them and know their struggles, and you can be that voice of reason with them to be like, hey, I've been there, I've been in your shoes. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There are solutions, and I can help you through this. You just kind of back what we said before, trust the process, because together we can get you, on the right path, and have the right tools and under your belt to make sure that we can you know take care of all the struggles you're going through, and all the symptoms and things like that that go along with whatever issue that we can get they're going through at that point in time. So that's why I think it's important to be able to choose like a niche market that you have a passion for. like
Yes.
like me, it's busy parents. Like I understand. I'm a parent myself. Yeah, things get hectic, especially when kids are in sports. My youngest in gymnastics, my oldest is in volleyball. So on top of balancing a full-time job and sports and school and trying to find time to meal prep and get your workouts in, and all these things, like I know what that's like. and
Yeah.
and my target demographic, a lot of these people, they've tried all the fad diets out there because they're looking for that quick fix, because they don't have the time to structure and prioritize, because they don't have anyone there to coach them and kind of guide them throughout that process. So they've tried keto and they've tried these other things, and again, that's where I can come in and be relatable with them. Like, yeah, I've tried these too, they don't work. So we got to come at it from a different approach, and try things this way and take those baby steps. And a lot of them, you got to start with those baby steps, right? So
Yes. Yes.
that's why I target the people I do, and I'm like you as well. I like athletes as well. Like, I want to get more into power lifters, and I will here eventually, especially in my local community, because like you said, athletes are super coachable, and it's just a whole nother animal in itself. Training athletes, it's fun. Not that coaching other people isn't fun, but there's just a certain it's just a certain level, training athletes and seeing them hit PRs and all that fun crazy stuff.
Well, and I think the difference is they are training for something very specific that we get to see that payout. Like
Right.
the rest of us, we're training for life over here, and it's great. It's great to be training for life and see that your health. Like I'm watching my grandma right now. She's been put in a nursing home. The number one reason people get put in a nursing home is because they cannot stand up out of a
Mm,
chair or
mhm.
off the toilet by themselves. And so that strength piece really does matter, not just for the aesthetic effect, not just for, I mean, our health right now, but down the road. And so I'm watching that happen with her and recognizing, like, okay, this is why I had a client the other day. She's like, can we please just put all of the things that are on the ground together and then all the things that are standing up together? I'm like, no, I'm extending your need for life alert. Like getting up off the ground is an important skill. And I I think that when we train with athletes, we get to see, because it's such a short span of like,
Mhm.
okay, we're training for this thing and I'm trying to get first, or I'm trying to get to where I can do this particular movement or trick or whatever. So we get to see that payoff because it's short. Where when we're training for life as a coach, like we see all of the progress that they're making, but they don't celebrate it the same way that an athlete does. And so
Right.
I think some of that comes back to teaching your clients how to celebrate those small wins and how to say, "Hey,
Hmm.
guess what? I did this today. I got my first pull up, or I squatted 200 pounds, or whatever it is." Teaching them that those little things do matter. Those little wins, as much
Yeah.
as they matter to them, they matter to us.
Oh,
Like, I want
100%.
to see I want to see those wins. I want to hear about those. Those are my favorite texts to get, like, "Hey,
Yes.
I
Oh,
did this
they're the
today."
best. They really are the best. When you get clients that text you like, hey, that my, I'm wearing these pants I haven't been able to wear in 2 years, or man, I just increased my, my bench press, by another 10 pounds, or man, I just, ran a mile on the treadmill. I've never been able to do that before. Like, getting those things, like it's it's why we do what we do, because we have somebody that is now bettering their life and they're excited about it and they get to tell us about it, and it just fuels our fire and our passion for why we're coaches to begin with. So
100%.
um I absolutely love it. And so I guess before we wrap up and everything here, because I know we're getting kind of close on time, if you could go back to when you first started out, like, with all the knowledge you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Uh, if Depending on how far back I could go, I would tell my younger self, start lifting. Start
Mhm,
lifting as soon, as soon as you can. Start lifting. That strength, not only is it empowering to be strong as a woman, but it's going to benefit in so many ways. And then let go of perfect.
mhm.
Perfect doesn't exist. There
Amen.
is no such thing. Perfect is like the horizon, and you can see it. You can see that destination out there, but as soon as you get there, there's a new horizon. So, and it's the same way with perfect. You can have this goal of whatever you think is that perfect ideal, and you can see it. You can actually get to that destination, but as soon as you get there, there's a new horizon. There's a new goal. There's a new something that you're going to want to work on. And so progress is so much more important than perfect.
Mhm.
I did have a couple of questions that came in, if we want to sit on those at all, or if we can save those for another day too.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, go for it. What's a question that came in?
Okay, so um, sorry, let me look at this really quick. One is um, recognizing, how do you recognize what's the right fit for you as in nutrition, like what diet, and then also what's the right fit with workouts.
Mhm. Good. Yeah, so that's gonna go back to what's sustainable for you, right? So I just completely bashed fad diets because I absolutely hate them. But like I said, if you're one of those people to where keto is the best for you and that's what you can do and you can sustain it, then you got to do what's sustainable for you and what fits in your lifestyle. So whatever diet or you choose, just make sure you can do it for the rest of your life, because this isn't a change, right? It's a transformation. So change is usually typically temporary. This is a lifestyle transformation. You got to be able to do what you're doing for the rest of your life. And same thing with your workouts too. I just had somebody earlier that what asked me like what they would recommend for starting out for working out. And I said, well, do something you love, otherwise it's going to feel like a chore, and you don't want it to feel like a chore because you're not going to do it. So if it's Zumba, if it's CrossFit, if it's Pilates, if it's yoga, do start with something you love, that that you can get up in the morning and be excited about it, and use that to start building your foundation, because from there we can start building upon that and start introducing other things. So that's what I would suggest.
And I agree. I that is always my answer. What can you do? What will you do?
Hmm.
And what do you enjoy doing? Those
Yep.
three things matter. But then I will also always say, try to find something that is going to promote some level of strength training. And when you're first starting out, body weight exercises are promoting strength training.
Mhm.
Uh, so any way that you can promote building strength of some type, whether it's body weight exercises, and even if you're not just starting out, depending on your goal, that's the other thing. What's your goal?
Right.
What
Yeah,
is your
that is
goal?
very true.
Because if you're trying to run a marathon, I don't think Zumba class is going to be beneficial to you. But so all of those things matter,
Mhm.
but I do come back to what can you be excited for? What can you,
Mhm.
and if it's nothing, because I have those people that are like, I am not excited about any of it. I'm like, okay, what can we pair with it? So for
Right.
me, music is huge. I'm competitive and I like
Uh-huh.
to do things with a group. CrossFit was awesome for me because I loved to beat my time. Even if I'm not competing with anyone else in the room, I loved to beat my time. Um, and I like lifting because I can see that progress. I can compete with Sheena from last week. Oh,
Mhm.
I did 150 last week. I can do 160 this week. Um, so for me, like recognizing where I compare that and make it beneficial. Um, and what works for my body. I have friends who are runners and they excel at that. And while I do enjoy running, I don't excel at it. I am not a competitive runner by any stretch. And so understanding that competitive nature in me is going to struggle a little bit with that. Um, yes, I will go run, but it's also not exciting in the same way as another. But like pair it with something else. Like what else? Is it people? Like do you have awesome people that you're lifting with? Do you have or exercising with? Um is is it being outside? Like my husband is an
Mhm.
avid outdoorsman. He does not want to go sit in a gym. He wants to go hike the mountains. And some of the
Mhm.
stuff he does, I'm like I could never do that. And I could, but but he does some really hard things that keep him in shape and keep him eh, active in doing the things that he enjoys doing. But being outside is huge for him. That's a key for him to want to go exercise is he gets to be in the mountains or gets to be outside. Um, so I think pairing it too, if you don't love to exercise, what can you pair it with that you love? Maybe it's some awesome music, or like if I'm running, I will put an audiobook on and I go
Mhm.
run and listen to somebody tell me a fantastic story, and that helps. But the next question that came in was um it was not framed as a question, more of a I wish I had known this when I started kind of a thing, but consistency. What what does that mean?
Mhm. So
What's your take on that?
consistency is it's going to be one of the biggest factors to your journey. You got to stay consistent. Even if
What does
it's
consistent mean?
so whatever so say my goal is to what's a good goal? Let's just stick with strength training, right? My goal is to get stronger. I want to get as strong as I possibly can. Well, you got to stay consistent with going to the gym and strength training. And you need to stay consistent on bettering yourself week after week after week, and usually that's through progressive overload. So continuing to lift just a little bit more each and every week, and you got to develop that consistency, because with consistency is going to distill discipline. So those two things are going to go hand in hand. We talked about a little bit earlier about motivation, how temporary it is. Well, as long as you're staying consistent, you're going to build that discipline. So that way, when the motivation runs out, you got that discipline and set. So, whatever your goals are, whether it's strength training, losing weight, just whatever it is, and how it aligns with your goals, just stay consistent with it. Now, obviously, there's going to be variables in there and things are going to change, and that's fine. That's part of the process, but just stay consistent with the foundation, because that's ultimately going to distill your discipline, and that's what's needed to make this journey, the long haul, for your lifelong transformation, basically.
Well, and see, one of the things that I struggled with when I first started, consistent meant every day.
Hmm.
Consistent meant I had to do it every single day. Well, I'm not lifting a full body lifting session every single day. My body
Right.
is gonna be so sore and so trashed, and I'm not allowing that recovery time for the muscle growth. And so consistent does not mean every day. Consistent means following, maybe you've set 2 to 3 days a week that you're
Right.
going to lift,
Absolutely.
or with nutrition, consistency is I'm going to hit my calories, but it's also if I screw up, if I have a bad day, if I have a bad meal, and I hate to use the term bad, if I overeat in a meal or have a meal that kind of puts my macros off, then I'm going to jump right back in the
Hmm.
next meal.
Right.
It's not, I'm gonna slash my tires for the day. I already had a cookie, so I'm just gonna eat the bag.
It
It's,
doesn't.
okay, I had the cookie, I enjoyed it, I think I want one more, and then my next meal is just gonna be what I would have eaten.
Yeah. Just carry
And
on like normal.
recognizing the difference between that and the mindset, "Well, I screwed up, so
Absolutely.
I'm gonna blow the rest of the day."
Yeah, you're spot on, and I think consistency is going to be a little bit subjective to people, but when it comes down to it at its core, just do the things you love to do and stay consistent with it, right? So whatever your goals are, just keep staying consistent to pursue your goals. Don't give up. Be consistent with it. If you got to make changes, make changes. If don't if something don't work out the way you wanted it to work out, like you're saying, you have a cookie or whatever, don't beat yourself up over it. It's fine. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just carry on like normal and just stay consistent, with the rest of your goals throughout the day.
I remember telling a client one time, she's like, I ate so bad yesterday. I had all the carbs. And I said, well, then your workout today is going to feel awesome because you're going to have all the energy. Let's
Have
use that.
all the fuel. That's awesome. That's super funny. Were there any other questions that came in for you?
Those were the couple that came through. So,
Okay. Well, how can people find you? Like what's your Instagram and all that good
so
stuff?
my business name is Strength Unleashed, but that was already taken when I created my Instagram account. So I started with Strength Unleashed with Sheena. It's my Facebook. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I also have a private Facebook group that you get a little more in if you're in there. Um, and then I run everything through an app. So I use Trainerize,
Hmm.
and so if you're wanting to work with me, we have to get your email. And I also do a newsletter that keeps people up to date on what's going on, as well as occasional recipes or workouts or things like that. And then I am also Strength Unleashed on YouTube. So um you can find me there, and I'm on Rumble. I think it's also Strength Unleashed.
Okay. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll include all the links and everything to our socials so people can find us. Me, Instagram, Ryan underscore NXT LVL. I have a Facebook as well, Ryan Next Level, Next Level Nutrition Facebook page. So we'll include all those links for people to find us. And of course, if you're somebody in Sheena's demographic, make sure you give her a shout and bring her on as a coach, because coaching is important. And same thing with me. If you're a busy parent who needs a little bit of help on structuring your life and living a healthier lifestyle, let me know. I'd love to talk to you and make sure that we get you guys all squared away. So um this was fun.
This
we're
was
we're
fun.
gonna we're gonna have more, because there's like a few
There's a
things on
ton
our
we
sheet
didn't address.
we haven't even get to mention. We're like an hour and a half, over an hour and a half into this. So we're gonna have more podcasts. Sheena and I think we're gonna make this more of a hopefully more of like a monthly thing at least, and then also have other guests and stuff on too, just to hear other perspectives from other people in the industry. And hopefully we can keep carrying on and get some good feedback from you guys. So if you enjoyed it, definitely let us know.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.